Hey Jabbers, welcome back to another episode. Today we're talking about business and astrology and how the two are more related than you might think. But first, let me introduce you to today's guest. KJ Atlas is a certified consulting astrologer and astrocartographer based in Southern California. She works primarily with celebrity, entrepreneurial, and corporate clients, offering expertise in business and travel advice, relationship compatibility, and lifestyle strategy. KJ blends ancient astrology with her background in behavioral health, psychology, and organizational strategy for Fortune 50 companies to provide personalized, transformative guidance to her thousands of clients. With over 13 years of experience, KJ studied and graduated from the Portland School of Astrology and holds a Bachelor of Science in Public Health from East Carolina University. She's known for her comforting and friendly demeanor, stunningly accurate predictions, and fun analogies that make complex astrology easy to understand. Holy moly. KJ, welcome to Just Another Biz podcast.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
This is an insane resume that you have here, and I'm so excited to dive into all of this information. I think there's definitely some words that I did not know what I was saying, so we'll definitely talk about that. But for anyone who is listening to this episode, because this has been a bit of a hot topic, so I think it's necessary that we do bring it up today. But for anyone who's listening to this, that's like, I kind of know my zodiac sign, and that is the extent of my knowledge in all of this. Can you give us a simple breakdown of what astrology actually is, how it works, and maybe how all of these other aspects, like astrocartographer, what all that means?
What is that?
Yeah, what is that, and how is this a business?
Totally fair. You know, when I was a child, astrology was so sexy and cool, and you would pick up a magazine in the checkout line and you'd read your horoscope and you'd say, I was born between here and here, so I must be this. And then you would read something and be like, that's cool. And you'd throw that magazine down and you'd go about your life. But there was something in it that stuck with me. And I was like, I need to know more about this. And I started exploring it as a teenager. What it really is and how I explain it to people is that it's essentially working with ancient calendars and time cycles that are already happening. We just need to tune into it. And when we tune into it, it makes our life a lot easier to work with these natural ebbs and flows of energy, nature, cyclical patterns. I mean, JP Morgan, the billionaires have been doing this for a long time. The average people deserve it too. We deserve access to something that is within us and outside of us and above us and is happening no matter what. We just need the education to know how to learn to work with it. That's the high level of what all this is. And then we can get into some of the specifics about like, what is astrocartography, right?
You saying like when we were children, it's like vivid memories of being like a lover. It's like your crush, right? It's like a lover will come into your atmosphere on the 17th, and it's like high hopes for like finding your crush.
Totally.
It like made me laugh, like those like millennial things growing up.
Yep.
But what's interesting that you said about this, and I think for anybody who's listening that's maybe more skeptical about this kind of stuff, is it is very science-based in a way, right? Like it's already stuff that's happening in nature. I think about mushrooms when I think about this stuff a lot. If you've ever seen Fantastic Fungi on Netflix, I think it is fascinating. These mushrooms all have this like connected universe underground that can talk to other mushrooms far, far away and through roots. And they have this whole communication system. And if you think about it, it must be something similar where we just have to tap in to that communication system, and we all have the power to use, like you said, this ancient type of calendars, communication, all this kind of stuff. It has been existing for years and years and years, and billionaires are using it.
Absolutely. It's been around for 12,000 years that we know of. That's just what we know. For certain.
I love that you went to the Portland School of Astrology. Honestly, I didn't even know that existed, but that's like so cool.
So Portland.
Yeah. KJ, tell us what is an astrocartographer, if I said that correctly.
Well, an astrocartographer is a fancy name for an astrologer who practices locational astrology using the astrocartograph. So back in the 70s, this guy, Jim Lewis, I even have his book sitting beside me because It's kind of like the holy grail for what we have now. And it still needs a lot of improvements because it says things like, if you're a woman and you want a big, strong man, go to a Mars line. It's very 70s in the way that it's written, but no hate to Jim Lewis. May his soul be at rest because he created something really cool. He popularized the idea that place is important in the astrology world. Because we're usually looking at like, oh, well, what season is it? Oh, it's Aries season right now. Like, that's the time. But when you calculate a chart, the third piece of information you need, like when I asked you girls about your birth charts, you gave me your birth date, time, and location. That third piece tells you so much about your relationship to place. Everyone has a complicated relationship to where they're born in some form or another, usually people I speak to. We might have places around the world that we feel oddly connected to, but for no reason. We might have places that we feel repulsed by, and we go there and we're like, this energy is so dense. And these aren't just the places that everyone feels some kind of way about, like Sedona or Stonehenge or the Egyptian pyramids. Like, this is different. This is when you're like, I love Branson, Missouri. And someone's like, I hate Branson, Missouri. That's astrocartography. It's your relationship to place based on your own birth chart. Kind of the way I describe it is it's almost like we have our own little personal vortices around the world that activate different parts of our psyche and ourselves.
It's just so interesting. My husband and I have been having a conversation for a long time about where we want to move. And there are places we're like super drawn to. And it's always this like fight of like, should we move here because we really love it? Or do we move closer to family? But I think that's like really interesting. I kind of want to dive into that more in relation to like business and where we're located. Because even for Gabby, like she moved from Southern California to Tennessee, like what, 6 years ago? And I'm just curious like how that plays into business as well. But KJ, so when you look at someone's chart, what are sort of the first things you personally pay attention to if you're thinking about how they operate as a business owner?
I am going to dial into their chart and first notice, where is everything which hemisphere is it in? That's kind of the first thing I notice. Like, is this like a person who runs a business behind the scenes who's like maybe working at home or balancing motherhood and kind of like has their home office and they're sort of behind the scenes? Or are they someone who's like jet setting, getting on planes, going on book tours, like boom, 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 like around the world? That's usually the first thing I notice. And then I dial in to ye old 10th house. There's 12 houses, which are just basically sections of a chart. Like if you divide it in like a pie of 12 slices. And these 12 slices are different areas of your life. So you have a slice for your husband, and you have a slice for your finances, and you have a slice for your kids, and for your home. And there's a slice for mission and career and visibility and how people see you in the world. And that one is the 10th, and it sits at the very top of the chart. And that tells you what your purpose is in the public world. What's the mission that you're supposed to serve in this life?
Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, so what happens, and you must see this often, or maybe you don't, if the mission house and your career path are totally off? Like, is that super noticeable to you? If someone's like, I'm a nurse, but I am meant to be a teacher or an entrepreneur or something like that, is that like blaring at you being like, this is not right? Like, let's start here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty much. And usually it's the person already has the challenge with it. That might be why they're sitting here, because they're like, I'm in this job and I don't really feel satisfied. Like, what else can I do? And, sometimes I think there are things that we're good at that make a good job, right? Where it's like, that checks the boxes in a job for me, but I'm going to fulfill my mission in other ways by being a mom or volunteering with animals. There's other ways we can do it. But if there's a way that we could make that public mission of career our true job, we're going to feel more satisfied in our work. And when it comes to purpose, there's usually something else I look at that's more of like a deeper soul purpose. And a lot of times that doesn't show up in your work. It's like there's something else that you have to do to find that fulfillment that's not work.
And does it tell you what that is? Because I think that's like one of life's big questions, right? We all want to know, what is my purpose here? And we could feel very overwhelmed with all of the possibilities and thinking, how do I know if that's my purpose? Like, that's a great purpose for Carrie. Maybe that's my purpose too, or no. So for you, when you were looking at a chart, does it scream this is their purpose and you can relay that in words? Or is it still something that they have to do more digging, more soul searching in some way?
I think it can be really clear. It comes through in the form of archetypes. And so, me as the translator, I'll say, here's the archetypes and energies that are surrounding that. And I'm also really creative. So I'm like, here's a bunch of examples. What's clicking? What's resonating? Is there anything that reminds you of something you loved in your childhood? Is there anything that you think about, but you've never thought it could be a job that I suddenly just brought up? And then maybe we could talk about ways that you could actually monetize that. Because the fact that I've created a business out of this, it would have surprised younger me. But I knew that this kind of work was my purpose because I found astrology a lot earlier than most people do.
So this sounds like really great for like even college students, right? Who just like
My
feel
favorite.
completely lost. And it's like, I don't even know what's out there. What kind of careers? What should I be doing? Or for business owners who feel stuck and they're like, I've been doing this for so long. What's next? Like my life has changed. And I feel like that's such a good route to go down to figure out. And I love that you said like sometimes like give them ideas of things that they didn't even know existed. And I think that's so powerful.
I mean, because truly, how do we know what all is out there? Like we can't even know. And so many people have stumbled upon their careers or their dream hobbies or whatever it is just by an actual pure coincidence. So yeah, I think that's so interesting. One other thing I wanted to ask, because you mentioned this earlier about like the place that is important. I think we talk a lot about the time and dates and stuff like that, but the location. Do people come to you and say, I want to start a new business, but I want to make sure it's aligned in the best way possible? And can you give them like, okay, you need to go start this business in Arkansas and it has to be on December 2nd?
Yeah.
Can you get that? Will people come to you being that specific on like, this is where I need to be for this business to succeed?
Yeah, it's happened several times, several times.
Wow.
And a lot of times too, it's like they've already started a business and they're like, it's not working. I'm open. I can go anywhere. I'm not tied down. Where could I go within the continental US, within parameters sometimes, but sometimes they're like, I can literally go anywhere. I own a suitcase, like send me somewhere that's going to be helpful for my business. It happened for me because I'd started my business when I was living in Portland, Oregon, which was supportive. You're around a bunch of people who support the thing that you're doing. But I was not getting bookings and I was not gaining traction. And then I went and I moved to Playa del Carmen, Mexico, and I lived there for about a year. And it popped my business off. And I was on a sun line. And the sun helps with visibility and networking and meeting people, putting yourself out there. Like you're glowing, like when you see someone, you're like, wow, your energy's changed. It almost felt like that, but for my business. And it just spiraled from there.
That's amazing. So, KJ, we sent you some information about our birth dates and things like that. And we wanted to dive into it. Like, doesn't have to be a huge dive into it, but we wanted to kind of talk about Gabby and I and get a little bit of a reading from you on our
Yes.
life, I guess.
So exciting. So there's a couple little things I want to tell you individually and then about how you come together as podcast partners. So I'm looking at Carrie. So you're a Cancer. You've probably known for a long time that you're a Cancer sun. Have you ever learned that you're a Capricorn moon?
No. But
Well,
you
that
saying
means
that, I'm truly like, what does that mean?
Okay. So I'll explain what this means. So we typically have in California, essentially, the West Coast, you might go to a party and they'll say, what's your big three, girl? And that's your sun, moon, and rising. I'm so serious. This happens at least once a week on the West Coast.
My God.
It's casual conversation.
I love it.
At my hair salon the other day, we were all gabbing about our rising signs. So your sun is Cancer, Carrie. Your rising is also Cancer. That's pretty rare. So you're what we would call a double Cancer. So you've got a lot in the Cancer bank. That warm, sensitive, creative, emotionally intelligent. Those are the words that come up for Cancer. We think of it as universal mother energy. And I like to spread that out and say it doesn't mean you have to be a biological mother. You need to mother things. You need to mother businesses. You need to mother animals. You might mother your friends. Hopefully not mother your partner too much, but Cancer is supposed to nurture things. Capricorn is its opposite sign. So Capricorn is like, okay, if Cancer's mom, Capricorn's dad, stoic, provider, I've got it together. I'm going to be at the office at 7. Capricorn is like the mountain goat that's climbing up the mountain ready to achieve and check off any tasks. So your moon is Capricorn, and your moon is your inner world. So while your outer world might be really soft, squishy Cancer, you are a tough, badass entrepreneur on the inside. Like, did you come out of the womb with a briefcase, like ready to take charge?
I love that. That's so crazy. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 11 plus years, but I worked a corporate job for like 2 years and was like, I don't think I can do this the rest of my life. And I never truly thought I don't think I grew up knowing or really understanding like you could be a business owner and run your own business. Even though I had some family members that did, I just never thought about it on this level.
I love that.
That is so fascinating.
That's
I love
very
that.
you, Carrie. Feels very accurate. Yeah.
I was like, I need to write this down, but I'm gonna go back and like research this more because that was very interesting.
You were born under a full moon. It might have been the same one that the Queen, Kate Middleton, was born under. Because when I'm always thinking, I have like a Rolodex of charts in my head, and I'm always thinking like, oh, who's a Cancer Capricorn full moon? Anthony Bourdain is too. A lot of celebrities are born under full moons because there's this sort of visionary quality, someone who's able to like bring everything to fruition. So public figures, entrepreneurs, people who have kind of extraordinary lives, a lot of times are born under full moons.
Carrie.
My goodness.
You've just been underplaying your.
I really have been. Oh my gosh, I gotta step into this.
You do.
You do. It's your permission slip to step into Big Boss.
Powerful. I feel like that's really motivating.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Your career house. So up here at the top of the chart, when you look at the if you were to pull your chart, the top of it is actually Pisces, which is another water sign. And Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac. It's associated with wisdom and unity and bringing people together, highlighting stories and emotional context. And so your North Node, earlier when I said there's something else I like to look at for life purpose, is the North Node. And it's funny you mentioned that you had a corporate job. Your South Node is Virgo, which is like rules and structures and following the path and doing the right thing and doing things in a linear, logical way. And right around the time you turn 36, 37, your North Node really comes online. And you're encouraged to move into your North Node energy, which is Pisces, which is about more faith over logic and trusting your gut over what a piece of paper says, and maybe taking a leap of faith and working on creative projects and kind of bringing things all together to create a mosaic instead of being very black and white, point A, point B. So that's kind of the strategy of how you should be approaching business at this moment.
Are you watching my life? Because so it's funny that you say that because my husband's a Pisces and my daughter is a Virgo. And I had her when I was 36, 35. And I feel like that right when I had her was like the time where I was like, what am I doing with my life? Gabby knows, she's nodding along. It's like, how did I want to transition my business? I'm still figuring out. So I feel like this is really helpful to like step into the things that I actually want to do, but it's been really scary to like step away from a known business or career.
The South Node, that Virgo, is your comfort zone. Yeah. And your baby girl is part of that comfort zone because you probably have that. If you entertain the idea of past lives, you've probably had a lot together. Usually people who have the same sign as your South Node, you're coming back to hang out together again.
Gosh. Okay.
And with your husband, it's good to be around people who are the sign of your North Node, because even if sometimes those characteristics give you some friction or even drive you nuts, it's good for you. And you're like, sometimes this flighty Pisces, go with the flow, whatever, really stresses out my Virgo, but you know what? This is good for me, and it helps expand and move in that other direction to create more balance between the two polarities.
He's going to love hearing this when I get off this recording.
Don't make me agree with a man.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Thank you.
Of course. Should we look at Gabby's?
Yeah.
And then look at the two of you together?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can tell Gabby's very excited to hear what you have to say.
I will hang on every word of this conversation.
Same. Gabby and I are going to talk about this probably for the next couple weeks.
I love it. You're both water signs. Spirituality and astrology and just like grasping the feeling of the energies probably comes more natural to the two of you than other signs. Gabby, you're a Scorpio. You've probably known this for a long time, but your moon sign is Cancer, the same as Carrie.
Carrie, this is a good sign.
Yes. So Carrie has Capricorn moon and then that Cancer rising and suns. There's some compatibility there. We'll talk about that in a second. And your rising, Gabby, is Capricorn, the same as Carrie's moon. So when you're Capricorn rising, you walk into the world with that serious boss girl energy. And there's also a playful undertone to it, don't get me wrong. Taylor Swift is a Capricorn rising. I mean, mega music billionaire, but also like, maybe a playful girl's girl at the same time. You could do both. She's like, I'm in a meeting talking about billion-dollar transactions, right? But I also kind of want to just bake cookies and hang out with the cats. Do both. Your sun is in your career house, which is interesting. Anytime I've ever met someone with their sun in their career house, for better or worse, and there's so many ways it's going to show up, you are your job. And you usually figure out a way to make you your job. You bring your whole self to work. A lot of people are producers in this role where they kind of show up and they're like, yeah, I'm really good at orchestrating things and making stuff happen out of nothing. But you show up as the job. You don't plug into someone else's role. You might be more of like, hey, I'm a generalist and I have these skills and I'm a Gabby. And you need a Gabby. So I'm going to show up and I'm going to do the job as a Gabby. That's what a 10th house sun person does.
Feels right.
Yeah.
Feels pretty
100%.
accurate.
I want to touch on your North Node too. So yours is the same sign as Carrie because you're born within a year apart. So you share the same thing. But instead of it being in the career house, yours is in the 3rd house, which is media and writing. Is there a book inside of you? I know you have a podcast. What other forms of media might actually be a pathway to self-expression and liberation and sharing a source of knowledge? You don't have to know now, but it might be something that starts creeping in and continues to kind of tap on the glass for the rest of your life.
Well, KJ, I was on HGTV once upon a time.
No way.
One episode.
Were you a house hunter? I love that.
Tiny house hunter.
I think you're supposed to be like the media creator, that when we're talking 3rd house, it's like you're the person who teaches, writes, creates material, creates curriculum. Like you have a body of knowledge or a school of thought, and you want to share that information with whatever channel or pathway you can do it through.
Well, I guess this
Maybe
would make sense for my
Your
YouTube.
Yeah, I was like, your
Yeah, I
career could really
teach-
take off here.
That's true. I didn't even think about that, but I teach wedding pros how to run wedding planning businesses on YouTube, and I really just do it for fun. But
There you go.
but yeah, I have been in that education space for a few years now.
I think
That makes sense.
that's probably a part of it. The more that you teach and kind of nurture your local community or online community, you'll probably feel more satisfied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
This is what we're all looking for, is that feeling of satisfaction. We think
Yeah.
it's money or we think it's like some level of success, but we just want to like feel I did the job.
Yeah, and you're so right, because anytime I get a comment, which is few and far in between, but when I get a comment and someone says, thank you, this video was so helpful, I'm like, someone watched this video and it was actually really helpful for them. So you're right. It is a very satisfying.
I love that. The two of you together are natural partners because you just have so much synastry. You already had the same sort of life direction through Pisces. So you're both walking on that Pisces, moving away from like, over criticism of yourself, over perfectionism, trying not to be too much in logic and like the critical brain and more in the creative brain, and the flow brain is, the buzzword that everyone's using right now. That's both of your compasses towards North Star. But the fact that you have all this crossover, like Carrie's sun and Gabby's moon being in the same sign, you get each other on an intimate level that, I've been in business partnerships before. You have to get intimate when you're in some type of partnership. You got to be real with each other and honest with each other, and also to be able to understand where the other person's coming from. And so having that same sign synastry is really important. We see it a lot in romantic couples that last a long time. So I think you need some of the same synastry in business partnerships, even though you don't need chemistry per se, but you need vocal chemistry when you're on a podcast together. You need to sound engaging. So that works really well. And then having a complementary moon rising, the person with the rising, which is Gabby, might help Carrie express those more personal sides, because it's kind of like, here's the gate. Here's the gate for you to explore and talk about those things that are more for your personal life.
I would say that's right. Just talk about it. Yeah, Carrie is more cautious with
Mhm.
how to appear online if it's not perfect.
Sure.
And I'm more of a let's just wing it.
Yeah, you're
So
a true
we do
Scorpio.
balance. Yeah, we do balance each other out very well.
I
I
love
love
that. You guys are a good pair.
this is so fascinating. Well, it's good to know. I'm glad you didn't say you guys should not be doing this podcast together.
No, 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 no.
Have you had those types of conversations with people though, where you've had to say, this doesn't sound good in the stars?
Luckily, never been in a situation with two people on a call where I'm like, this is a really toxic relationship, and like blink twice if you're okay. Because typically, if people are sitting down with me to look at their charts as a couple, they already have chemistry. Like they've usually been together. There's obviously a reason they're together. But when we do sit down, I can point out, hey, here's all the amazing things about you. And, they're usually looking at each other with love eyes. And they're like, yeah, we're so great, babe. And then I'll be like, so there's a couple things here that might lead to challenges. Do you want to talk about them? And I'm like, this is not couples therapy, but here are some areas that might be your headbutt areas, whether it's communication or whether it's because this person is more closed off with their emotions and this person is deeply a feeler. That kind of stuff comes up and we just talk it out. And I've had some couples who, part their ways and they'll still say, it was a great relationship and I'm glad we were together, but it just was for the time that it was. And then I've had clients who've been together for years. So both.
Yeah. It sounds more positive than it is negative, which is good. But I think people should be open. If they're open to hearing the positive, they should also be
Mhm.
open to hearing what the challenges might be.
Totally.
And why not know about those early on so it can be something to work on than to let it get to a bad place.
Yeah, I agree.
No, this is so cool. Okay, KJ. So if a wedding planner or wedding pro is new to all of this, what's like one or two parts of their chart that they could look at that would like immediately give them insight on how to make decisions or how best they work?
This is my favorite way to go about that, especially because of the wedding industry, is I would say look to your Venus placement because Venus is going to show you what you value, especially when it comes to love and money and dealing with other people, which is everything in the wedding industry. And so I would say, let's look at your Venus and see what's important to you. Do you want to work with very traditional couples with a very certain budget, or do you want to work with couples who are really pushing the envelope and kind of going up against the grain and trying something new? So we could see that in your Venus placement. I also recommend looking at the 10th house, kind of like what I looked at with you, to see what is it that when you're hopefully a very, very old person on your deathbed and they're writing your obituary, what do you want them to say about you? It's going to come through the midheaven. The person who's writing your obituary is going to talk about the things that are on your midheaven. And we're so much more vast than that, but that's typically the area that most people see. When we look at celebrities, we're experiencing them through their midheaven, which is that 10th house, top of the chart area. So look at your
Okay.
Venus and look at your midheaven if you're a wedding professional. Those are the two areas that it's going to give you a lot of insight into what area you should be working in, how you should be working with clients, what is your specific niche and mission.
The Venus part, one more thing I was going to say, but the Venus part is really interesting because I think that is where a lot of new business owners get stuck in who to specialize in when it comes to clients. And it's so easy to look on social media and say, well, that person specializes in that and it looks like they make a lot of money and I want to do that. But it's maybe not the best fit for your personality based off
Totally.
of your chart. And I think that would be something I would want to gift a new business owner is a reading like this to say, hey, let this be a place for you to start to get to know yourself so that you can better serve
Yeah.
the right clients.
It has helped me so much out of the trap of comparison.
Yeah, that's big.
That's huge. Yeah, Gabby and I talk about that a lot of like, you see stuff online of like, even if it's another wedding planner and what they're doing, but then it's like reminding yourself, like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. But you like
Yeah,
a jealousy, right? Because they're like being successful or whatever is being perceived online. But I feel like that's such a
100%.
good way to dive into like, what do you actually want to do?
Yeah. Yeah, I love working with new business owners in that capacity of like, well, you have an idea and you have a really strong idea what you're going to do, but let's dial it in even more and make it more unique to you.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say those are like the same things they should look up or kind of study for business owners to make more aligned decisions like pricing or boundaries, or like we said, saying knowing what to say yes to or no to?
When we're talking about money and pricing, I always say look at the second house, eighth house axis. It's going to tell you a lot about your relationship to money. If you have any money blockages, which is going to create pricing issues, or if you're someone who tends to overgive and lack boundaries, that's going to be an eighth house issue. So we would need to look at those two areas to kind of get the full money story. So that's one thing that's really important. And if you're like, yeah, I know I've got some money stuff I need to work through, that's one of the first areas that I would look at. The 2-4, the 2-8 axis, they're across from each other. The second house is kind of in the bottom left corner and the eighth house is in the top right.
And do you work with them on those things? Because I would say, and I don't know about you, Carrie, but I feel like wedding industry folks, we are givers. We're in hospitality, so we do have issues with that kind of stuff, with boundaries specifically and underpricing. And not everybody, of course, but it is going to be a big issue in our business as well as our personal life if we do not address those things early on. So is that something that you see on the chart and then you have an action plan on how to work through that?
Yeah, I do these in my intensives, my business intensives. And I always say it's like one session is equivalent to like 8 weeks or more of business coaching, because it's like we're just getting rid of all the extra strategy that someone's like, this is the best business strategy. But everyone has such a different design of how they work and what they should be doing. So I'm like, let's just scrap all that. Let's go straight in through the chart and kind of go backwards. Go through the chart and then design your business strategy. It's going to be completely different. Depending on the industry, like you said, if you're in an industry like therapy is another one where it's like overgiving and there's like a lot of emotional taxing and trying to make people happy. I do take that into consideration. It's like, well, this is the industry for you, but how do we get more comfortable with these boundaries? You know, are there certain hires that need to happen that can take care of some of these other things to create more of a barrier? Like those are real life strategies that we can apply using astrology, which is why I like to say you can make it a lot less woo-woo than what people think.
You mentioned like people coming in with like the wrong strategy. What is like a common thing that you see on how business owners are misusing or misunderstanding astrology when it comes to their business and how they're running it?
Totally. I mean, I think really the only thing I see people talking about publicly, like in the big sphere of how to use business with astrology, is usually either very cryptic, where they're not really giving any value at all, or extremely wrong and poppy, where it's like, if you want to attract more, dress like your rising sign. It's like, okay,
What?
Pam, like that's a great
Yeah.
idea, but like, how do we get down to like, you know, actual strategies that we can use in business? Like that's fun and that's great. And it's probably going to make you feel more like yourself, more magnetic, but let's branch out. Let's get even more creative. Like what are the ways that we can actually be using this blueprint? It's like God gave us a blueprint. Like, why are we not using it to forward our business and other areas of our lives?
100%. It's like I feel like the biggest thing online right now is like this great millennial career crisis that people have been talking about. And I feel like this is such a good way to like hone in on what we should be doing with our lives and how to go about that.
Totally. I wish I'd had this when I was even younger.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in a town
Yeah.
where I was like, my job options were nurse, teacher, stay-at-home mom, bank teller. And I was
Yeah.
like,
That sounds right.
none of those are really jazzing me up. Then I saw things like, there's someone who names Crayola crayons. And I'm like, that's my kind of job. Like, how
Wait,
do
that
we
sounds
find
so fun.
right?
And the OPI nail polish,
Yeah.
they have wild names.
See, that's like a career that you're like, oh, I didn't realize somebody does that for a job.
Right.
Like,
Right.
that's wild.
And that's what astrology kind of helps us do is, okay, if we pull back from like the zoom in, like, here's my options. But if we pull back and be like, okay, there's actually a lot of wild jobs out there and opportunities to create business. Someone created silly bands and made a fortune off of them.
Fair.
You know, like
Yeah.
there's possibility. I think that's my biggest mission in this is I just want people to see that there's so much more possibility than what we're limiting ourselves to.
Yeah. And I think it's too, like, business owners, we are forced to be both a creative and a very logical person. And that's really hard because as small business owners, we have to do, stuff like bookkeeping and tax stuff and like things that really hinder our creativity. And then we're asked in the same day to come up with beautiful designs and mood board. It is so hard to step into both of those roles and be good at either of them. So I think having tools like this can help us expand our thinking a little bit more and imagine the impossible, for lack of a better term, but like imagine all the possibilities of what could be and think beyond what you just know in your day to day. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
what Carrie said, how do we know those are jobs that exist? We would never know.
Totally.
Yeah. KJ, do you feel like astrology can help can help us understand why maybe some parts of our business feel easier to us? So like if someone, we were just saying, okay, maybe sales are really great for one person. Is that based off of our chart reading versus someone who's better with client communication or client experience? And then some parts on the flip side feel like massive struggles all the time and we don't want to touch them with a 10-foot pole, but we got to do them because we're entrepreneurs. So does that have to do with our charts?
Yes, absolutely. One of the biggest challenges for most of the people I work with is the fear of being seen. And that's something that you have to work through as an entrepreneur. And if you get to a point where you're like, I really just don't want to work through this. Okay, Scorpio rising, for example. Scorpio rising, 9 times out of 10, they're like, I really just like do not want to be seen. I don't want to be visible. I don't want to show my face. Like, please don't make me get on a video camera and sell myself every day. Heard, but that's also going to be challenging. And it's something that we kind of have to work through. And so I might say, okay, how can we, create a distilled version of you for social media that still keeps your kids private, still keeps your relationship private. Maybe you even have an alias, but it's still you. It's authentic, but you still get to keep some of yourself to yourself. Because Scorpio risings usually have a Leo midheaven. So I'm like, you are meant to be seen, babes. You got to be visible, even though it kind of hurts to start off because you're like, ooh, I'm giving away a lot of my privacy, my sanctuary. So these kind of problems, this is just an example, are all over the chart. And there's a pathway through and out of it. It's almost like, what is your willingness to expand into that? What's your willingness of personal growth? Are you willing to go through the hard therapy? Are you willing to fight through the natural challenges around the friction of who you are and the boundaries that you keep tight that prevent you from being your best self? For me, my biggest one was selling, like getting over the ick of selling and my Southern politeness. I didn't want to offend. I didn't want to like be showy and like in your face. But then I was like, I have a really, really good product. I really am helping people. Like more people need to know about this. So I'm just going to get out of my own ego and figure out a way to show up and talk about this because I really do care about it. So it shows up in the chart and you are responsible for working through it on your own terms.
Yeah. KJ, you kind of going back to something you had said earlier about like location, because you said you moved to Mexico and your business really took off, but now you're in Southern California, correct?
Yeah.
So can you dive in a little bit more? Because I also feel like a lot of business owners right now that have been in business for a while, especially in the wedding industry, some are like, it depends on family circumstances. They're like moving locations. We mentioned, Gabby moved like 6 years ago and it's like kind of starting over. But can you talk more about location and how that's important to your business and like figuring that out?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you this example. When I go to my hometown on the East Coast to visit family, my business is so slow and stagnant. And it doesn't matter if I'm continuing my marketing strategy, the one that I use on the West Coast, if everything's the same, if I'm showing up equally, it does not matter. My bookings are so much more stagnant and slower. And I'm on a Saturn energy. I have a complex relationship with that place. I grew up in that Saturn energy. And I said, I cannot wait to say sayonara and get out of this Saturn energy, run as far west as I possibly could. I got stuck a few times, got stuck in Dallas, and then I went to Oregon, and then Mexico, and then ended up in California. And that was a choice because while I was in Mexico, I couldn't stay there forever because I didn't have residency. I did have to leave. I wanted a place that checked my weather box and was on a favorable line. And at the time, I was like, I need to hustle. Like my business is starting to grow. I want to grind, and I want to work really, really hard. And so I moved to LA, which was my Mars line. And it delivered I worked my tail off and I hustled, but I also had a lot of Mars side effects like inflammation and anger that was buried down start to rise up. And Mars is hard on a woman. Mars is hard on anybody, but it's really hard on a woman long term. If you're like, I don't want to be like pumping cortisol all day long and stressed. And I had clinically high cortisol that I've since moved to the desert away from that Mars line on a Jupiter line, which is expansive and growth oriented and more spiritual. So I still got that same level of growth and expansion without that Marsy inflammation and heat and aggression that I was dealing with. So I finally found that happy medium, that place that's like it pushes me enough, but it doesn't push me over the edge. And I started to notice it when I came out here for vacation. I would come for vacation and I would book 6 appointments in a 2-hour time span. And I would be like, what is going on right now? Like, I'm not even posting. It's just the right type of energy for the business.
This is so fascinating because this hasn't happened recently because my business has slowed down a little bit since becoming a mom. But for years, during like my peak years, every time I would travel, like go to see my family, vacation or whatever, I would always say to my husband, I'm like, I feel like everyone wants to book a call, or like I would get inquiries. And that's so fascinating to hear because it was like the minute I wasn't paying attention, my energy
Wow.
shifted and I would get like multiple inquiries and they want to book a call right away. And I was always scheduling stuff on vacation. And I just always thought that was so weird, but I never really dove into it.
There's something to it. I promise.
Gosh, I'm so fascinated.
Were you going
Yeah.
home to visit your family?
Yeah, a lot of times it was in the Midwest. I'd be like going to see family or like we'd go
You
to
were
the
born on
lake
your
and
sun
like,
line.
yeah. Oh
You
my
were born on
gosh.
your sun line. So when you go back to the place you were born in that region, you're experiencing your sun line, which was the one that I had in Mexico that creates a lot of visibility.
Is that why like certain cities are so more densely populated? Like without people knowing, they gravitate towards certain cities naturally. But granted, everyone is going to have a different city
Yeah.
that is on their sun line versus their Mars line and all that kind of stuff.
That's an interesting question. I don't think it's that. That would be a different technique that's known as the geodetic map. It's more of like here's the collective energy. Like when we do astrology, we're like, hey, let's look at your personal transits or let's look at the collective transits that are affecting everyone. And so astrocartography is like your personal. And then the geodetic map is like the collective relationship, I guess, to the land. Which is why there's like a line running through Glastonbury, which is supposed to be like the holy site. Like, the Greenwich Meridian runs
For
through there.
everybody.
Yeah.
For everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no. And obviously, like, we can't deny, for example, Los Angeles, it's coastal, it has great
Yeah.
weather. You can't, like, that's fair for everybody. But it's interesting to hear how it caused you, like, yes, there were pros to it, but it also caused inflammation. And I do think, like, I lived there for 10 years. Carrie's now lived there for maybe more than that.
Yeah, like
And
15. Yeah.
yeah, 15 years. And you are starting to feel this need to leave. And I also felt a need to leave. Loved it while I was there, flourished. But then there was a hard stop.
Yeah.
And I was
that
like,
happens a
ooh,
lot.
I'm done. I'm done here. I'm done. And so I think that's just interesting to see how that affects many people.
And that's how the transiting astrology that's literally changing every second affects astrocartography. So when we pair the transits and the timing of you personally and what's going on in the world with location and place, then you get the perfect recipe of this is where you're supposed to be right now. But this cycle is probably going to shut down for you in X a number of years, and you're probably going to feel like the chapter's complete and it's time for you to go somewhere else. And that might activate over here in this area. That's what happened to me with Oregon. I love Oregon, but the chapter was so clearly closed and that transit had passed.
This is so good to know. It's making me think a lot about life and just, yeah, you saying like knowing your sun line. Is that right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess for a lot of people in the wedding industry, there's a lot of burnout, right? And I think sometimes people feel it after a busy season, and then sometimes we're in a slow season or a booking lull. How can people understand like these patterns better or astrology better so that they're not constantly feeling overbooked or running on empty or panicking in these slower months?
That's a really good question. And it starts with remembering that we are in a capitalistic system that wants us to be on all the time and productive, and every year should have a profitable margin increase. And, we need to more, 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 more. And I think first we have to deprogram from that and be like, this is not the natural way of things. Like, there's something really odd about this. Like, it's okay to, stay the same a couple of years, especially if it means that you have more time to spend with your friends and family, more time for your hobbies, more time to take care of your body, if you have a more balanced life. So that's part of it. The other thing is that there's a cyclical season for everything. And Mercury retrograde, for example, everyone loves to talk about it on the internet. And they're like, when is Mercury going to be out of the microwave? And it's funny because it's true. Mercury retrogrades are hell, but they're hell because we're trying to push forward and do business as usual in a lull that our ancestors used to be like, okay, we're going to work with the stock we have and just kind of like chill out and not really push forward. Like, we're not planting our crops this season. We're not going to buy new cattle this season. Like, it's so much more about survival. And then like we're here doing stuff on the computer in our marketing world. We're like, this feels really silly. And that's why things don't really work out well during Mercury retrograde periods, because we're fighting against the flow. It's like trying to swim through a rip current that's taking you in a different direction.
Well, and I feel like like you said, we're in a society that's constantly asked to be on.
Yeah.
Whereas there are societies, so I think of, in Europe, their vacations are very serious. You don't turn your phone on, you live your life. Or in more, southern South America, they have nap times during the day. Like, there are these natural cycles that they've respected and continue on. Here in North America, we are on all the time. It is needed for Mercury to be in retrograde to slow us all down and say, you need to pause on these bookings. You need to work on the work that you have, or you need to just take a breather. And they don't last years and years and years necessarily. It's just a slower time. But that's interesting to think about in saying it's not that you will be in a lull forever. It's maybe just a sign for you to take a rest.
Totally. Absolutely. My business is really slow in December, and I always say, like, well, the light is not out as long as it is in the summer. Like, I should be sleeping more. I should be sleeping in and doing less work. So I'm like, okay, the bookings are not coming in. So I'm going to actually use this time and really, really, really rest. So then by January, February, when they start rolling in, I'm more refreshed and ready to take on a surplus of people coming in. Maybe I am working more like 9 to 10 hour days sometimes during those seasons. But if you actually balance that out cyclically, and you're doing something you love, you don't mind working a 10 or 12-hour day sometimes. If you're like, I actually took 3 weeks off in December and I worked 12 hours a week,
It's good for us all to like kind of deprogram, I think, our minds, our bodies from the grind of daily life that we're so,
Yeah.
so used to.
A couple more questions for you, KJ. And I know we could talk to you for hours and hours, but we are needing to get ready to wrap this up. But I think I know the answer to this question because we've talked about this a little bit, but is there a way to use astrology to guide timing? We talked about place. Like we talked earlier, for some people, it could be beneficial to relocate in order to start a very serious business that might be more successful, but perhaps timing, like launches, raising your prices, or just in general, making big decisions, renting a studio or a business partner or something like that, without necessarily feeling that you have to wait for all the perfect conditions. But that does feel like something we could control a little bit. And if we know there's a time that would be best to do something.
Totally. I'm of the belief that we shouldn't try to use astrology to control everything, because that creates a really unhealthy relationship. But for really important things, one of my favorite examples is one of my author clients. I have a lot of authors, and she was getting ready to send in her third book to her agent. And she's like, I don't care if it's the entire year. I need the best day to send this in. And so we figured it out and be like, here's your window. Here's the best day to send this in. And the advance she got was insane, and it did so well. And now she is getting a second book in the series with the publisher, and it's just really spiraled into this huge thing. And I think it'll probably get adapted into TV one day because it's that good. So we'll see. Yeah, when there's something really important, and I think a wedding is also something that's really important where I'm like, you should elect a chart for your wedding for sure, because that's like hopefully something you do once in your life. You want to pick a good day and a good time for your wedding chart that represents your marriage. So if it's something major, you do want to use this and make sure that everything looks good.
And some cultures do,
I was
right?
gonna
Like,
say, yeah, a
yeah.
lot of like my Indian couples, it's like their like grandmother is telling them when, because she's like reading a chart on like what time the ceremony should be, and it like usually the ceremony has to face a certain direction
Yep.
as well.
My heart, that is so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. This was such a good conversation. I feel like my mind is blown. Like Gabby said, we could probably talk about this forever. But for anyone listening today, what's like a simple, tangible way they could start using astrology in their business this month and just sort of if they're feeling lost or just overwhelmed and want a little bit more guidance on the direction of their business?
My advice is always start with the moon cycles. If you want to follow something in astrology, but you're constantly hearing like Saturn's doing this and Jupiter's doing this, that's a really overwhelming. Take it back to like Farmer's Almanac level. Like, is the moon new? Is it building? Has it culminated? Is it now waning and disseminating and turning down its energy? I think it's important to intuitively notice how you feel with that, especially those of us who have cyclical hormonal cycles like that, to see how your hormonal cycle fits with the energy. How do you feel when the moon is going through different signs and different phases? Just keep it simple and start there, especially if you, like the two of you, have Cancer placements. I do as well. We're considered lunar attuned. We're more sensitive to what the moon's doing. So you might notice if it's a new moon and your energy's a little low. Or if the moon's in Sagittarius and you're like, I want to go disco dancing tonight and blow the house on sushi, like you might notice those things and be like, why do I feel this way today? If you're sensitive to the moon, it's probably the moon. It moves the fastest. Every 2.5 days, it changes signs. So start there.
So, Carrie, clearly we need to redo our recording schedule to make sure we are in
Yes.
sync with the moon.
Yes, I agree.
We'll
This
have
was
to
a good
it'd
day
be-
for recording, though. The moon's in Gemini, so I was like, oh, this is really good for
Excellent.
like a
Okay.
multi-person
I felt it.
conversation.
I felt it. It would also be really fun for us to see if even our our numbers go with the flow of the
Mhm.
moon. Like just to say like where our most popular and our least popular, what was the moon those times? Because I
Yeah.
wonder if it has anything to do with how we came off with our energy.
Yeah.
That would be a really interesting study. Please let me know what you find out.
Yeah.
We need to figure out our best recording days and release days. KJ, I know you mentioned so many different things today, like houses and nodes and all this stuff. Is there any, and we can always put this in the show notes afterwards, but are there any like specific books or guides that people could purchase? Obviously, we want people to go work with you as well, and we'd love for you to share that. But if there's anything, just like someone wants to kind of pick it up and read more about their signs and their houses on their own.
Yeah, you know what? I have a complete suggested reading list that I'll send
Okay.
over to you.
Great.
And I also have a guide that I made that I send over to people before they have a session that's kind of like a primer of here's like the basics that you might want to know before going into something. So I'll send that over to you too, and you can attach it however you like. Keep exploring is what I always tell people. Don't forget to look up, like actually go outside and like especially if you live in a place where you can see some stars, like go out and look at the sky. Just like our ancestors did, they were looking at the same moon, and explore lightly, like start small, I love Stephen Forrest's books. That's a good place to start. Anyone that's kind of like a intro to astrology. April Elliott Kent has a good intro book. Those are all linked in my reading list. So I'll be sure to send that over to you.
Great. We love
Okay.
that. And KJ, what is the best way? Like, how can people work with you in what different capacities?
I am mostly working with people one-on-one in intensives. I also work with people over time. I have a business program called Intune Entrepreneur. It's probably going to launch in the next month or so, usually more towards late spring is when I bring it out. And we go through all of these things that we talked about, these different areas each week in the process of building your business in a small group setting. So those are the two areas that how I work with people in starting their business, the intensives and then the long-term program, especially if you're really serious about starting your business and wanting to do it in an intentional way that's honoring your design.
That's amazing.
We will share, all of your information with our listeners in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I
I
think
really
this is a
enjoyed
really
chatting with you.
fun way to go into like a coaching, for lack of a better term of some people may not want the traditional business coach, but this to me, it just sounds fun and exciting and full of possibilities. So anyway, I hope people reach out and we'll be so curious if some of our listeners do reach out. Let us know so we should even have them on the podcast and say, what did they learn about their session and how is it changing their business and how they're moving forward with their own decision making. So I'll be so
That'd be so
curious to
cool.
know. Yeah.
I would
Well,
love
thank
that.
you so much, KJ. This
Thank
was
you.
amazing. And we'll put everything in the show notes, like Carrie said. Jabbers, as always, come find us on Substack. We have a new monthly bonus episode for everybody there that is a paid subscriber, but you can also come for free and read some of our weekly newsletters on there that we just talk about thoughts and things that we have that are happening in the online space or just events and crazy situations that have happened in our own world. So we'd love to see you guys there. And thanks so much for tuning in. Bye.